There are many exceptional fighters in the Warhammer 40k universe. The Emperor's Champion of the Black Templars, the blood-crazed demon primarch Angron of the World Eaters, and many others have claim to the title of being the best of the best when it comes to close quarters combat. Skilled though they are, they don't pursue close combat with the same zeal as the duelists of the Emperor's Children Traitor Legion. Even those that can count themselves among the flawless blades of this once proud and noble Astartes force pale in comparison to one man, Lucius the Eternal. A scar-covered warrior who came to see pain as just a consequence of success, Lucius was once a shining example of what an Astartes swordsman could be. Proud, graceful, and perfect. Every stab, every slash, every strike was determined to be more perfect and deliberate than the last. Lucius was better than them all. But once his legion fell, so too did this swordmaster. Though he's lost his soul to Slanesh, he hasn't lost any of his skill or arrogance. He persists into the 41st millennium, having died time and time again, determined to make each new chance at his new, damned life devoted to the perfection of his art. But who is Lucius? What's so eternal about him? What's he like? How does he fight? Let's get into it. Welcome back to Starhammer. Lucius hails from the ancient mining world of Kimos. Kimos was a strange place, stuck in perpetual twilight, and since becoming isolated like most other human worlds during Old Night, was low on resources, manpower, and survivability. Only the strongest survived Kimos, though not out of some tribal obsession with dominance. It was merely who could survive longest in their ruined world where the air was thin and you could only eat recycled waste, drink polluted water, and work until you dropped. Lucius was naturally gifted and said to be quite handsome back in his younger days. Anything he put his mind to, he excelled at. The arts of war and killing most of all, specifically the ways of the blade. For in duels, Lucius could truly show that he was better in every way than his opponent. So much better, in fact, that he could lord the power of life and death over them in the arena. This incessant need to dominate, kill, and obtain glory pervaded every aspect of Lucius's days. This was alarming to a lot of people, as he was utterly ruthless against his fellow pupils and any who had allegedly wronged him, either killing them outright or taking an eye or a finger, just to show how much better than them he really was, and how if he really wanted to, he could end their existence right there. Against his trainers, he also showed no mercy. Despite what everyone perceived as troubling character flaws, which Lucius himself would later recognize as well, nobody could deny that Lucius was the best at what he did. However, one event changed Lucius's life forever. During an annual tourney, a mix-up of the roster had Lucius going up against a guy who was twice his size and twice his age. Though Lucius took a few hits, he ultimately disemboweled his opponent, causing the man's supporters to storm the arena in rage and attack Lucius. But as the arena erupted into a massive fight, Lucius was pulled out by a man he had noticed watching from the shadows earlier. A towering and imposing figure who revealed himself to be a sergeant in the 3rd Legion of the Astartes. Impressed by Lucius and his ability and determination, he offered the young man a shot at joining his legion, which Lucius gleefully accepted. With that, he left Kimos and was never seen on the planet again. As a warrior of the Astartes, Lucius was better than he ever could have been. The enhancements he was put through made him faster and stronger than before, allowing him to best every single one of his battle brothers and even achieve back-to-back victories against the practice blade machines that the Legion possessed, which was something no Space Marine had ever done before and would never be able to do again. His Legion, for their part, was extremely proud of Lucius and celebrated him at every turn as the perfect bladesman, for perfection was the trait that was most valued among the 3rd Legion. This, of course, only fueled his ego, but it also didn't motivate him to keep being better than everyone else. Eventually, he was given command of the 13th Company. But one thing became abundantly clear to the powers that be in the 3rd Legion, and that was that Lucius probably didn't actually care about the Great Crusade of the Emperor itself, but more so cared about the glory it brought to him personally. It didn't matter who he was fighting or saving, Lucius did it all for vanity, and he made sure everyone knew about that too. Lucius's feats in the field were the stuff of legend. From killing scores of 6-armed, sword-wielding golems with just the hilt of his blade, to personally ending the Fausch Revolution, he was the prized jewel of the Legion. Despite his reputation, Lucius did have one small problem. He was simply too pretty. Not even kidding. Lucius had some scars for sure, but none were from another warrior actually getting a good hit on him. This led to his brothers teasing him for his flawless looks, and it actually led to Lucius being a bit upset about it over time. So he figured if no warrior was good enough to give him a scar, he'd give them to him himself. And so, Lucius began the ritual scarification of his chest and face, making him even more terrifying to behold. This wasn't just your average scarification either. Lucius cut deep, as deep as he could go without being detrimental. The other Astartes of the 3rd Legion saw this as a bit weird, but accepted it nonetheless. I mean, this was Lucius, their best fighter. If he had a reason for it, it had to be a good one. For him, it was that pain equaled success. The more scars he gained, the better of a warrior he would be. Men would fear him, not just for his skills, but for his appearance as well. But the truth ran deeper than that. Along the way, Lucius met a chaos-corrupted remembrancer that was accompanying the Legion to document their time in the Great Crusade, named Serena de Angelis. After showing off her self-inflicted scarification to her forearms, she told Lucius that each one was a memorial to one of her victims, whose bodily fluids she had used to craft her Slanesh-inspired paintings. Lucius was upset that he had been teased by the other Astartes, but after someone broke his nose in a sparring match, it dawned on him that his face would never be as beautiful as it once was. So Lucius took it upon himself to add a new scar to his face every time he slew a worthy opponent. By the time of the Horus Heresy, Lucius was a deformed monstrosity of his former gorgeous self. While Fulgrim originally tried to sway Horus back to the light, he himself became corrupted, and his legion shortly followed. First the Primarch, then the officers. His corruption slowly trickled down through the ranks. Drunk of promises of excessive perfection and all pursuits of sensation, the Emperor's Children Legion descended into a decadence of blissful madness. Then the infamous Isstvan III massacre took place, an event where Horus and the other traitor Primarchs gathered their legions together to purge the loyalist Astartes so that the rebellion could truly begin. Believe it or not, Lucius wasn't counted among Horus's allies, at least not at first. Lucius fought alongside his longtime BFF, Saul Tarvitz, a fellow captain of the Legion. However, Lucius became envious of Saul, as he gets the glory of battle against the traitors and the respect of the men, much more so than Lucius. Eventually, the arrogant Lucius couldn't take it any longer. He wanted to fight for the side that would admire him and give him the glory he deserved. He reached out to the heretic commander, promising that he would bring Tarvitz to them and also break the loyalist lines from within, so long as he got a spot within the traitors' ranks. Not wanting to pass up having an amazing warrior like Lucius on their side, they eagerly accepted his proposal. And Lucius did fulfill his end of the bargain, leading a surprise attack against the loyalist defenders and cutting down troves of his brothers, leading his friend Saul into a one-on-one duel in front of the heretic forces. Though it was a duel worthy of the stuff of legend, Saul ended up besting Lucius, who retreated into the surging ranks of Horus's armies, enraged at being bested, but seeing no need to continue as he had upheld his part of the deal. After the infamous Dropside massacre, Fulgrim presented Lucius with what would become his signature weapon, the Blade of the Lair, a Slaneshi worshipping race of Xenos that the Legion had wiped out many moons ago, and that the Primarch had taken this trophy from. Though Lucius was grateful for such a powerful gift imbued with potent chaos energy, he sensed something was wrong with his Primarch. Lucius didn't know it at the time, but the blade he had been gifted once contained a fragment of a powerful demon, a demon that had come to slowly take possession of Fulgrim throughout the Primarch's years of using the weapon. Now at first Lucius didn't say anything about this. Over time, Fulgrim's behavior only confirmed his suspicions that something was off though. He stopped observing Legion rituals, stopped consorting with his gene sons regularly, and even his swordsmanship began to lag far behind Lucius's own skills. To top it all off, Fulgrim used psychic abilities against a Warhound Titan when he wasn't even a psyker. And between all that, Lucius was haunted by dark dreams that seemed to leave a trail of breadcrumbs regarding his gene sire. When curiosity got the better of him, Fulgrim finally decided to follow the trail these dreams had been leaving for him. It led him to a theater on the Legion's flagship, Pride of the Emperor, the very same theater in which the Slaneshi opera Margavilia was performed, that heralded the fall of the Legion into chaos. Within that chamber, Lucius uncovered a grand portrait of Fulgrim. It was a masterpiece. It captured every detail of Fulgrim's person perfectly, and he knew Fulgrim wouldn't have had it any less. But within that portrait, in the eyes of the painted Primarch, Lucius saw something. The painted eyes of the Primarch seemed to be following Lucius's every move. Upon closer inspection, he noticed the burning agony within those eyes, a sensation of power that was lacking in the current iteration of Fulgrim, which led Lucius to conclude that Fulgrim was somehow trapped within this work of art. Whoever was currently in control of the Primarch certainly wasn't himself. Calling together the top officers of the Brotherhood of the Phoenix, Lucius convinced them of the Primarch's folly. Despite many of them harboring bitter resentment for Lucius and more concerned with their own carnal pleasures than helping him out, they agreed to capture Fulgrim out of ego. What could be more satisfying in combat than besting the Primarch himself? It was too tempting to ignore. Though they took some casualties, the Brotherhood managed to knock Fulgrim out and took him to the famed Legion apothecary Fabius Bile in order to try and get this pretender out of the Primarch's body. Enacting a torturous ritual known as excruciation, Fulgrim willingly allowed himself to be subject to unspeakable agonies for the chance that he would be freed. However, Fulgrim soon turned the tables. At some point, Lucius realized the truth, that perhaps Fulgrim wasn't being controlled by a pretender, but rather he was the pretender. Fulgrim suddenly ripped out of his restraints, and Lucius and the others immediately bent the knee to their Primarch. awaiting a great wrath to be inflicted upon them. Despite suffering severe trauma at their hands, the primarch showed no anger. In fact, he was quite pleased. Fulgrim explained that he had indeed been possessed for some time, but that during this possession he bided his time in order to learn more about the demons of the warp and how to beat them. Eventually, Fulgrim forced himself back into his own body, and the demon into the painting Lucius discovered. He explained that his behaviors and ruses were just following the path of perfection that Slaanesh had laid out for him, and by extension the Legion. Fulgrim explained that he intended to go farther than any of Slaanesh's followers before, when it came to experiencing sensual pleasure and self-enlightenment through excessive sensation, that he wanted all of them to join him. And so Lucius followed Fulgrim into the Eye of Terror, alongside Pertuabo and his Iron Warriors. The Iron Warriors thought they were there to find an ancient Xenos weapon, but in reality, they were there to help Fulgrim achieve apotheosis into a demon prince of Slaanesh on one of the Eldari Crone worlds. Of course, it's never as easy just walking into a place and becoming a demon prince. The traitor Astartes had been tracked by a small, loyalist band of Iron Warriors who would engage them, as well as having to put up with the remaining Eldar Wraith constructs still on the doomed world. And Lucius fought valiantly, but eventually met his match against Nakona Shadowkin, a survivor of the Raven Guard and rival of Lucius. Through his empowerment in chaos and ego, Lucius believed himself to be untouchable, but he was dead wrong. Nakona moved so fast that Lucius simply couldn't react enough to block his attacks. A stab here, a slice there. Eventually, Nakona delivered the killing blow by driving two blades straight through Lucius's collarbones and down into his chest cavity. Despite this mortal blow, Fabius Bile ended up bringing Lucius back from the dead. After that, well, that's when Lucius's corruption to chaos truly began. As the Horus Heresy raged on, the Emperor's children leaned more and more into the intoxicating ordeals of Slaanesh, the more elaborate, sickening, and twisted their atrocities would become on the worlds they plagued. Between conflicts, the Third Legion didn't rest. Pain and pleasures of their corruption were too great to even pass up on. The Legion would hold gladiatorial fights against each other and other displays of violence to quell their boredom and keep themselves constantly stimulated. When Lucius took part in all this, he cranked it up to the next level. His obsession to be the best fueled him. Sure, he was in it for the love of the game, but it was also a lot more than that. His goal was to embody one of the key aspects of the Legion's pursuit of perfection: ambition. It was his obsession that caused rumors to swirl that it was perhaps that obsession itself that kept Lucius from death. And whenever he won, he made sure to grandstand so much that it would put an NFL player to shame. He was so arrogant, so prideful, so ecstatic that even the Slaaneshi demons in the warp wrapped themselves around his soul so they could feed off of all his emotions in these moments. Eventually, Lucius caught the attention of a rival within the Legion, Lord Commander Sirius. Sirius decided that if anyone was going to do the best, it sure as hell couldn't be Lucius. So they squared off in the arena. Lucius with this gleaming blade of the lair, and Sirius with a massive 12-foot phoenix spear. Lucius was only in casual dueling garb, while Sirius was fully kitted out in elaborate power armor. And so, the two clashed. It was a messy ordeal, much to the joy of the crowd. Not only did they get to witness the prowess of these incredible warriors who were at the top of their game, but they got to witness an event that would ring in their memories for years to come. Sirius planted a solid kick into Lucius's chest, sending the swordsman flying backwards, followed by a swift slash that took off one of Lucius's fingers, and then a blow to the head, which filled Lucius's vision with stars. Now Lucius was roughed up, but he persisted, his giggling madness only growing louder and louder with each wound inflicted upon him by Sirius. For Lucius, these mortal wounds were pure carnal pleasure. As Lucius tried to deliver a decapitating blow, Sirius grabbed him by the throat and slammed his opponent into the ground, over again, mercilessly pounding Lucius into the sand, while his laughter rang through Sirius's ears until all that was left was a bloody mesh of obliterated meat and sand. The crowd went absolutely wild, celebrating Sirius's victory and skill, but also Lucius's death and the sensations he experienced along with it, and, by extension, the sensations they experienced while watching it. But the victory was short-lived. Over the next several weeks, Sirius was stricken by horrific symptoms. Faces of demons came to decorate his armor. His eyes began to change color. His hair was falling out. And under it all, deep-lined ridges began to appear all under his skin, becoming more prominent with each passing day. His battle brothers heard his screams, but none came to his aid. Sirius was violently transforming right before their eyes, and eventually, Lucius's laughter overcame the screams as his face emerged from Sirius's like some dark and twisted butterfly. To this day, whenever Lucius is bested, his slayer will undergo the same painful transformation, and Lucius will walk the stars again. The only remnants of Lucius's slayer would be another tortured face upon his armor. though it is said that Lucius has one weakness. If one were to strike him down without any malice in their heart and only slay him out of an act of mercy to end his eternal corruption, then you could put him down forever. But with the Imperium and their armor of contempt and swords of disgust, it's safe to say that Lucius will probably be gleefully roaming the galaxy for a little while longer. And that's it for this one, y'all. With the Emperor's Children now in full swing on the tabletop, I thought it was appropriate to do a little lore dive into the most famous of their champions. Well, second to Fulgrim, that is. Lucius is some of the coolest character lore in 40k, and his stats on tabletop aren't too bad either. I, for one, am very excited to see him on my shelf, and where they take his lore in the near future. As always, drop a like if you like it, a subscribe if you really liked it. Don't forget to check that community tab for shitposts and shenanigans. I'll see you in the next one.